the fraud allegations for Niko have begun, basically. Over the last few chapters, ever since Niko has actually come back into the story, some people have been feeling a bit underwhelmed by his performance. I think this is very interesting because I did sort of anticipate this type of reception to Niko, but I'll talk more about why I anticipated that later. For now, I just want to prove a point, especially with the latest chapter of Kengan Omega, chapter 243, where Setsuna was doing fairly good against Niko. And because of Setsuna's pretty much impressive performance against Niko, a lot of people are giving Niko the side eye, you could say. And this might be, you could say, a minority opinion, but I think that this reception to Niko spreads a bit wider than most people actually think. In fact, I'll display it. First, we want to look at some of the comments on Reddit. One of them straight up saying, for supposedly being the main villain of the series, Tiger Niko has been really unimpressive compared to Edward or Shen. Hope author doesn't pull the same bullshit he did with Edward. Another comment from Reddit as well says the following: although I really love that they gave Niko a different personality, being a sarcastic guy who provokes his opponents, in brackets, a little like Edward but without the bravado, close brackets, instead of the generic stoic and overly serious character. He then carries on to say that basically he doesn't seem to have the powerful presence of Edward or even Shen, and the whole air of mystery around him seems to be disappearing. However, we must remember that Kiryu is also very strong at Oma/Agito's level. Now you might be thinking, okay fine, that's just the Reddit, but I also saw some similar comments on Mysterious Weeb's video of the review for chapter 243. One of those comments say, bro, they made Tiger Niko look like a weak, mustache twirling villain. He used to look scary as hell in the earlier chapters, and personally created some of the strongest characters in the entire series. Again, another comment from Miss Sink's channel instead is, hopefully the Tiger Niko steps it up a notch soon, because so far he's been kinda underwhelming in this fight. Though I realize this fight is probably gonna get interrupted like always. And even on my channel, I've gotten a few comments, but I'm going to highlight one that is on the extreme side of this entire phenomenon. And that is, same tier as Edward? Is that how it looks to you? Setsuna is nowhere in the tier of Ryan, and it took the top 4 Kure fighters with the Wu leader to face Edward when he was just having fun. So how in the world does Niko seem to you in the same tier as Edward when Setsuna alone is hurting him? You get the point. Most people have very mixed feelings or straight up negative feelings about this, and it's not just like a few people here and there. I think it's a lot more than a few people. Now to me this is very interesting because of the fact that I think the source of all the disappointment is the expectations that people had for Niko. And I want to talk a little bit about Mysterious Weep for a second. He's the biggest content creator for Kengan Omega. And I think a lot of people more so follow along his line of thought. In fact, that's what I think the majority of people think. And that is that, well, Niko might turn out to be the true main villain in some sense. In fact, he states this in his latest chapter, and I think the chapter review before that, he was talking about how he thought of Niko as essentially being one of, if not the final villain of the series. But he also goes to say that he's kind of a little bit disappointed in his performance as well. Now, there is the caveat, because this is a very balanced take, especially if you take the stance that Niko is going to be the final villain, Mysterious Weeb straight up says that look, he knows Niko is holding back. Even I say it in my chapter review. Most people are reasonable enough to see that look, Niko himself is using, of course, the leech technique to cause pain to Setsuna. He's not really going all out. And when he does go all out, or if he does, then we'll get to see the true power of Niko and everyone will shut up. Everyone basically will put Niko and Edward on like a similar tier in no time. But I'm here to tell anyone who is thinking that no, it's not fine. This is just the beginning of the Niko allegations and slander campaigns. Because the source of all of this is the idea that Niko is going to somehow become the main villain somehow. And when I say main villain, I don't even mean like for the entire story of Kengan Omega. I don't even think he's gonna get his own arc. He won't be the final boss of a single arc like it was with Edward. And that's where I think one of the main differences between Niko and Edward really was here. Edward was the final big boss of the Kengan vs. Purgatory arc. That's how it was. And so I think he got that bravado, that impact of strength, mainly because of where he stood in the entire arc. But I don't think Niko is going to actually get that. He might actually have his own hype moments, I don't doubt that. But I don't think it'll be in a culmination of a specific arc. And I think the moment people start to realize this is when people will officially call Niko a disappointment. And I almost realized this the moment I made my theory for what would happen to Niko and his character. I made this theory like a few months back when I talked about the inevitable fall of the last Niko. I recommend you watch that video, especially if you made it this far, because it seems like you're interested in the character of Niko. I took a pretty deep dive into Niko's character and the trajectory of that story. And when I finally reached my conclusion, there was also a part of me that realized that if I was right about what I thought about Niko, and what seems to be the trajectory of the story, it would actually mean that Niko probably isn't going to be the main villain. He can't be, really. And so, earlier on, I made a video of why Niko probably won't be the main villain, where I made my argument as to why I think this way. And I feel pretty good about that video because it got a better reception than I thought it would. I thought I was gonna get destroyed, but most people seem to have been fine with the video, even if they disagreed. But the best part now is that I can at least have peace of mind knowing that I'm not coping. That if I had made this video any later than when I did, it would seem like I'm coping with the reality of what was going on. And now I could basically sit back and be relaxed and be like, hey look, I saw this coming. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this leads, even if I turn out to be wrong, because this is kind of like my own theory on how I think the Kengan community will react to the reality of who Niko was versus what they expected. And I don't think it ends well, but hey, that was the video. It was a short, fun little topic I wanted to cover. Quite controversial right now in the Kengan community. But yeah, that's what it is. Don't forget to like, sub, all that fun stuff. And until next time, take it easy.